see you. I can hear you. I can see you. We're gonna say I can feel you, but that's like a bit, going a bit too far. But alhamdulillah, good. This time around, compared to last time, right? So last time you were a little bit in awe of some of the people around. Here, you're talking to your peers, right?
This will be good. I think if I could hide my face, in the video, that'd be amazing. Is there a way to do that?
You wanna hide your face?
Yeah.
Put a mask on.
When I see my face, when I'm talking, it just kind of throws me off.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there is. What you do is where it says switch to gallery view, there's different places where you can do different things.
Oh.
And so you don't see. We'll see your face, but you won't see yours. Or you can actually. Are you using an iPad?
No, it's a laptop.
Okay. There should be a way that you just literally just swipe across so you don't see. I don't know how you do it, but it's one of those the options where that's in the top left corner. I think it's one of those.
Okay.
Just play around with that. I think you'll. There he is, the orange man himself. Open your mouth. Okay.
Sorry.
Press your
Salam alaikum, Steve. Salam alaikum, brother Terry. Terry, I remember at Oscar Black.
I'm sorry,
I remember your brother at Oscar Black, yes.
Oh dear. I haven't thought about that in entirely too long.
Okay, so remember, guys, I'm going to try. I know it's going to be very hard not to make reference to Guantanamo because that's what links us all together. But I'm going to ask you all to try as much as possible to not make reference to Guantanamo. And I'm probably going to be the first one guilty of making the references, right? But I'm just trying something different. I'm just trying something a little bit different. And if it works, it will work. If it doesn't, then you can just say, Muslim doesn't know what he's doing. Are we all good? Anas, are we all good? Ready to go? Ready to go.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, we're live. We have
okay.
guests.
Okay. All right, good. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. All praise be to Allah, and peace and prayers be upon the blessed Prophet and all those who follow in good. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters, and welcome to this special evening where we will be talking about the anniversary of 9/11, the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and how it brought our worlds together. I hope that this evening, I say this evening here for me, but it's not evening for our brothers in the United States, who I'll be introducing you to in a moment. But it's evening for me and for Mansour. We hope to be discussing with you on this important date to many people for different reasons. Its legacy, its consequence, and how it brought our worlds together. What did bring us together, of course, is that two of us are former Guantanamo prisoners, and two of us are former guards, US soldiers in Guantanamo. And that's how we have all come together. I'm going to attempt for us to have a conversation between ourselves of different aspects removed from Guantanamo, and hoping that Guantanamo doesn't become the focus of our conversation for today. So first, before we do start our conversation, in which we will be talking to one another, we'll be asking one another questions. We hope that we can ask some of you questions that maybe you'll be able to answer for us, if possible. And we hope that you will be able to, that we will be able to answer some of your questions. So let's start, first of all, with Mansour al-Daifi, who is a former Guantanamo prisoner. He is also an activist. He's an author, just written a book that's been published. And he's also recently joined CAGE, which has been an absolute great pleasure for me because it's helped to take a lot of pressure off me from lots of interviews and requests and throw them all on his head. So welcome to Mansour. He's joining us from Serbia. We have Terry Holbrooks, who is a former Guantanamo soldier, sorry, although some could say that he's been imprisoned by us this evening. He served in the early days at Guantanamo, and he subsequently became a Muslim and has come to the UK, visited. We've gone together to the Emirates and spoken about the effects of being prisoners and being a guard, and as somebody who also has written a book about his experience of being a Guantanamo soldier and then coming out of it. And he's joining us from Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm reassured that it's absolutely freezing cold. Not
Horribly cold.
Yeah. And finally, we have our dear brother, Steve Wood, who is joining us from Oregon, which I think is somewhere high up on the map in America, high to the left, I believe, high to the left, right? Yeah. And that's how I describe things, not through a compass. And so Steve is somebody we've got to know, particularly from the story of Mohamedou Walid Salahi, the film The Mauritanian. But prior to that when Steve went to visit as a former Guantanamo soldier who was the guard of Mohamedou, went to visit his friend that he got to know in Guantanamo, Mohamedou, in Mauritania. And since then also has been campaigning for the closure of Guantanamo and for transparency. So let's just start. I'm going to ask a question and anybody can answer it. I think Mansour won't be able to answer this, though you could try. And that is, when you first heard about the September 11th attacks, what was the thought on your mind? And what did you do or think you were going to do?
I will start because I am the youngest among my brothers. Because I remember I was in Afghanistan. I was on a research mission. The first time I heard about it, we were in the restaurant. It was like, as in Afghanistan, like 1,000 years behind the world. No TVs, no newspaper, nothing. So in the radio, we heard like airplanes flew into the building. So it just something happened in the United States. That's it. I didn't pay much attention to it. There was no any kind of like media attention or people talk about it. We just do our things. And I never ever imagined that that's a sign or that simple news will change my life forever. I mean, simple as that. I have no thought. I never pay attention. I never thought about
it. Okay. You answered when you were the last person I was thinking was going to answer, but there you go. Steve.
Well, yeah, my first thought was, where am I going to get sent to? I joined the military. I did not imagine there was going to be any wars or, any deployments that I was going to, be on. And when I saw what happened, I instantly thought, I guess I'm going to go do my job.
And Terry.
Wow. So let's see here. I had just recently graduated high school and had nearly no responsibilities at that point in time. So if I recall correctly, I was waking up with a bit of a hangover and was told to come watch the news as the nation was under attack. Got out of bed and went looked at the television, and it was showing the same footage over and over of the first tower being hit. And it really just didn't seem to click with me how big of a deal this would be. Kind of as Mansour had said, it just were some planes hitting some buildings. It didn't really perceivably seem as a nation under attack. And I certainly would have thought that it was going to lead to what it obviously has led to.
Okay. I did say that I don't want to lead the discussion, so do please feel free at any point at all to ask your own questions that we will respond to, so it becomes like a conversation. And for those who are watching in the Q&A, please do put in any questions that you have. And likewise, guys, if you want to ask anybody, anything else outside, just type in something into the Q&A. Before I move on, I just want to remind all the viewers that Cage is heading something called the International Witness Campaign, which essentially goes from 9/11 to July the 11th. And this is a 5-month period, which marks through events, through discussions, through writings, all sorts of connections to this period of time over the 20-year anniversary, going from the beginning of 9/11, the war on terrorism, all the way to when the first prisoners were sent to Guantanamo. So now let me ask, Terry, were you already in the military when 9/11 happened, or did you join after?
No, I was not in the military. I joined afterwards. 9/11 surprisingly was not a inspiration or a motivation for me joining either. I came from a very just above poverty, I suppose you could say, family. And I didn't have entirely too many options as looking out for my life after high school. I had gone to an audio engineering trade school, but that turned out to not necessarily be a career option. And as a result of such, I was looking for something that would provide me with stability, job security, a future, obviously. And the military seemed like a great idea. They were recruiting, and surprisingly, it took me 4 visits for the recruiter to take me seriously and allow for me to join. But yeah, 9/11 actually wasn't a inspiration for me whatsoever. I joined about a year afterwards.
Okay. And Steve, what were you already in the military? And if so, what pushed you to join the military, and what happened when 9/11 happened?
Yeah, so I had joined about a year prior to 9/11, and it was something I always wanted to do as a child. You know, like came from a very like patriotic family and really right wing. So, you know, it was definitely something I felt like, you know, the family would be proud of. And, you know, my grandfather was like my hero growing up, and he was, you know, military veteran. So, and also there's this movie In the Army Now, like with Pauly Shore. It's like comedy. That was a huge inspiration, because like I always wanted to go to basic training, and he made it look like fun. It was nothing like the movie, but
Okay. Could you tell us what the movie is again? Because I don't think I've seen it.
In the Army Now.
In the Army Now. Is that a comedy?
Yeah, it's a comedy.
All right. Okay. Because I saw Mustafa laughing.
It's a terrible comedy.
Terry
It's
laughing.
almost as bad as Major Payne. It's up there. We had a lot of awful army comedies in the late 90s.
Yeah, Major Payne's definitely the worst though.
Okay. I'm going to take a look at this one. It sounds interesting because so how did you, when 9/11 happened, Steve, what went through your mind? You were in Oregon, which is really, it's really far away from Washington and from New York, right? So how did you feel? What was your first sentiments?
Honestly, like I remember waking up, because the night before I had gotten my tonsils removed, so I was kind of on a bunch of pain medicine, and like it didn't really register until about 5 or 6 hours later. I kind of woke up out of my stupor, and I was in shock. You know, I did not expect something like that to happen. And then I bought into the whole, you know, they hate us because of our freedom thing, and like so I got a little amped up and worked up, and you know.
Yeah.
To your defense, Steve, the military, our media, a number of organizations did a great job of pumping that into us. I mean,
For sure.
I'm sure you probably saw the drowning pool video quite a number of times when you were in basic or advanced individual training, for that matter. So don't feel bad.
Explain. I don't know. I don't think many of us will know what you mean by the drowning pool video.
Some creative individual took the music from an artist, Drowning Pool. They had a song called Bodies. They took this and applied it to footage of our military weaponry and aircraft technology, etc., and destruction of the Taliban, of Middle Eastern individuals, of anything that would have serve for the purpose, so to say. It's very easy to find on YouTube. Just go ahead and give a search sometime when you want to feel very depressed for Taliban bodies drowning pool. Those 4 words, it'll all pull.
Really? Okay, I'm going to take a note of that. Perhaps somebody could put that into the chat. Drowning pool, you said. That seems okay. So
It was used, I was
sorry,
gonna say
what
it was used for during interrogations a lot, also, from what I understand.
okay. I mean, okay. I didn't know about this one. Maybe I've heard it somewhere else. Is it like a death metal music type thing, or?
That would be an insult to death metal.
Okay. All right. We'll leave that one there. Mansoor, 9/11. Initial thoughts. Like you're in Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan when it happened. There were no TVs, so I've never been to America. I've heard of the Pentagon. I can, say that I had no clue. I had never heard of the Twin Towers. And
No.
What about you?
Honestly, as usual, like I didn't know much about the United States. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. I know my brothers and friends who families want to go to live in the United States. Especially in our countries, many families save, try to save their life, saving, selling homes, lands, try to get the visa and to go to live in the United States, away from poverty, from enjoy the freedom. For me, like as a boy, I didn't know much about the United States. Sometimes I get confused between the United States and the United Nations, believe it or not. If you tell me about like a building skyscraper like 110 floors, like I wouldn't even believe you. Like in Yemen, we have only like 24 buildings. This is the highest building. Yeah, okay. Like 20 floors, 25 floors. Wow. So for me, like as I told you, we get, when I was helped one of my friend who worked for the Wafa organization, it's a charity organization at Guantanamo, at Afghanistan, which like provide logistic and medicine for hospitals and so on. They got instruction. My friend told me we have to leave as soon as we can because we have to liquidate everything. So he said this is the last shipment. He said instead of throw it, we're gonna take it to the hospital and leave. I said okay. On the road, we had a nice car, Toyota Blue, new one. We're ambushed, and from our journey started. CIA, like 9/11. What does mean 9/11? Like at that time, they didn't call it 9/11. The name came later. So yeah. I never like 9/11. Yeah. 9/11. So,
I mean, yeah. This is one of the things here because the way the calendar works, right? It's here in Britain, it's actually 11/9. Yeah. The correct thing is 11/9. So we here in Britain have actually, for this one day of the year, have turned around our calendar because we start with the day first and then the month, and everything is based upon that. So it's interesting.
What I say, brother, even Afghanistan, the life there was like as nothing. I mean, like the life in Afghanistan. There was, I think, only maybe Al-Qaeda or maybe the head of someone knew about what happened there. But the rest of even the people, Afghani people, most of them doesn't speak English, don't speak English, and they follow the Pashto news or their life. So there wasn't like that kind of media and huge about it. So we
of course there wasn't. Let me see. There's another thing, right, guys? That obviously Guantanamo's brought us together, but there's something else. We all, in different ways, I know some completely and some in a new way, discovered faith, discovered Islam, discovered a greater purpose. Okay, so some of us were Muslims. I mean, two of us were already Muslims, but we all say that experience of the present enhanced it. What did you guys, Steve first, what did you even know about the Muslim world, or what was your interaction with Muslims before? What did you think about them prior to 9/11?
You know, I really didn't know much about him at all. You know, I knew some like very basics, but 9/11, it was after that, it was like in your face all the time, you know. Like everybody wanted to know like who is this enemy that we were fighting, you know, and
I just want to look quickly. I mean, I know you say you didn't know very much at all, but what did you know? What is it that you'd heard? Was there anything that you heard or had formed in your mind?
probably is what I saw in the news, you know, what was going on in Palestine, and that was a big thing, you know, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Probably can think of some Hollywood movies in which like the Arabs are the bad guys, right? It's that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. How about you, Terry? What was your understanding of Muslims and interaction with them, if at all, any before?
Embarrassingly, nothing, absolutely nothing. Morgan Freeman portrayed a Muslim in Robin Hood.
I remember that.
Told me that, damn this bloody country, you can never find the sun, I think is what he said. So I learned that Muslims pray east and there's no sun in England, just from that one line. But
there is
unfortunately,
there is
no, outside of some shaming in Hollywood movies, there's really not much of an education of the Middle East and of Islam and things like that within our education system, our high school, middle school, etc. It's not something you would learn about until you start paying for school.
That's very interesting. So,
Brother Mu'abbam, once I asked the interrogator, and like he said, you Muslim did that. I said, why? Just explain to me why we would do that. What's the reason? I don't know nothing about you. I never met you. I said, if you take my photo and give it to all Americans, if I hurt anyone, just with even like feeling, I'm ready to be executed. Like, explain to me why would we attack you in such a way? He couldn't. He just looked at me because you hate us. Like, I didn't know you how to hate you in the first place.
So let me ask you, Mansoor. Then I want to ask you a question, right? So I asked these guys the other way. I want to ask you the other way around. What was your understanding of interaction with, if any, the Western world, with America in particular, before 9/11?
Brother Mu'abbam, you know, as you like, as Yemeni tribe, we live in the tribal society in Yemen, very conservative. I worked in, before Afghanistan, I worked as a security guard. I worked in Dutch embassy, in German embassy. So my idea about these people, I met with really educated, very nice, you know, people. So I have a good idea. Like one of my dreams to live in Germany, because I get the treatment, the way they, you know, especially at that time, there was like a woman ambassador. She used to help with building schools and wells, and I get really good impression about those people. I mean, that's what is.
So that's almost like similar to Mohammedu, isn't it? That he actually got that scholarship to go to Germany and become like the first person from his family to actually get to go to Germany, and it becomes this big story because he says, you know, his father was actually a camel herder. I mean, that sounds kind of.
You know, what I remember, like when we used to work in the, one day we work in the ambassador house. She has a guest. It was Ramadan. Then at that time we were sitting outside, three of us, and people smoking. She came to tell the people quit smoking because they are fasting. And also when we pray, she closed the doors. And you know, this is the idea of the West. There was no hate, no garage. I was also arguing with the interrogators. I said, I was guarding your asses in my own country. How I become a tourist? Can you explain to me? I'm serious. So I got to look, nobody could explain why we would do something.
Okay, guys. So you know what? And as I said, I'm going to say it again. Feel free to ask me if you want to ask me anything. You know, and not just me be the kind of guys asking the questions.
Okay, our turn to ask you, Brother Mu'abbam.
Go on.
The same question about what your thought about the United States, in particular about United States and Americans.
Okay. So
I know there is like genuine some kind of conflict between the British and the Americans. We knew about Guantanamo, that British told Americans you didn't know how to speak English, like.
So look, I'm kind of in between on this. So I'd never been to America. didn't know. I've never had any physical contact with America at all. But being British, there is a link. The link. I find it funny because people say, what language do they speak in America? English. Well, that means it's from England, right? But English is a universal language now, but it comes from England. If you ask the people in Wales, what's your language? They say Welsh and not English, right? So that's interesting. But that's all about the influence of England, the country, on the rest of the world. Scotland has Scottish Gaelic as its own language. Irish has Irish Gaelic as its own language. But England is an imperial power, and it is spread around the world. And it has gone to Canada. Canada still has, like, the Queen. They still have to give, the oath of allegiance, like the Canadian Prime Minister. I find it really strange. They have to give oath of allegiance to the British Queen, though it's an independent sovereign country. Same with Australia, New Zealand. So there's all of this stuff. And America was part of the college. America is a product of that. So I got affected by it, by American what? American music. When I was younger, I used to listen to it. American literature, but most of all, American films, American movies. And I know them that well that though I've never been to America, I was joking when I say, top left and top right when I'm talking about Oregon. I know that it's like northwest. But I know America really well. And I think I know America way before I'd met any Americans because of that. I had a sense of it. But there's something else that I felt towards America as well. And I have to say, there was something dark about it that I didn't like. Something dark. And I'll tell you what that darkness was. It was, of course, slavery, what happened to the Native Americans, and then wars in particularly Vietnam and that region, particularly. When I think of World War II and Americans in World War II, I actually think of them as the decent people. I do. I feel that way, just how history is, because it's a
despite the fact that we used atomic weaponry months after the death of Hitler.
So last night I was sitting talking to some Japanese guys, and we discussed this, like, about occupation. How come? I mean, this is going to be a fascinating subject, guys, and I hope we can open it up to this, because we're really getting to what I wanted to get into. I thought of America as the good guys in World War II, right? But then I have a problem with the very thing that you said. And then after that, it's all of these wars of expansion. And prior to that, it's the Native Americans. So I was politicized by this. I already felt in a particular way about this, but I didn't feel animosity and hatred. I didn't feel that. I can say I didn't feel that. I think that came after my own personal experiences. But anyway.
The subject of personal experiences, by the way, for both Mansour and yourself, what has life been like since you've attained freedom again? Have you felt that there has perhaps been a decline in Islamophobia over the years? Do you feel that perhaps as America shifts its hatreds from interests to interests and back again, have things gotten any better or any worse? What has it been like since you've attained freedom?
Mansour, that's you.
Well, okay. For me, I didn't know what freedom means until now, because just until that day, I was being followed, because it is for the 9/11. Like, wherever I go, I'm being followed by two people, and just they make sure I'm not going to do anything, like whatever. So last week I had a photographer from some newspaper. We were followed. Oh, he panicked. He said, "Why are they following us?" I said, "Just keep down. I mean, like, calm down. This is the way. This is my life." So if you ask me after if I'm free, I'm not free. As I was told, you are not free. You live under restrictions, and that's it. I mean, there's a lot of difficulties and challenges after Guantanamo. I was working on my thesis for my graduation for my bachelor degree. My thesis was about rehabilitation and reintegration of former Guantanamo detainees into social life and the labor market. So I interviewed a lot of brothers, almost like in many countries. So most of us, like as I told you, we live with the part of the product of war and terror, which is like Islamophobia, phobia and hate crime. Plus, as former Guantanamo detainees, we got special package, which like the stigma. You're in Guantanamo, that means you deserve to be on that place. And as soon as people hear the name Guantanamo, it means you deserve to be there. And some people, they try to avoid to be in contact with you, talk to you, or to come even to know you. Why? Because again, they don't want to get into any kind of trouble or being questioned by the police. In my case, anyone I get to know here in Serbia or associate with, they get either arrested, interrogated, or called by the police. So this is our life. And I asked one brother who already had one of the European countries. He has been living there for the last 10 years. I asked him, how do you feel now? He said, look, I have the citizenship, I work, I'm married, I have 3 kids, but I live in fear every day. If somehow they discover I was at Guantanamo, my life will change upside down. Why? Because he said, the stigma of Guantanamo. He said, imagine my kids go to the school and they were told your father was at Guantanamo, your father was a terrorist. It's just like, this is very simple example.
It absolutely blows my mind to hear that as an answer, because when I think of Guantanamo, I think of, I don't know, 95% innocent rate. So the idea that there's a stigma attached with it that is that terrible, and it's known globally, I would have thought that after this long of not being able to find ways to try and convict all the individuals who we've held there and all of the individuals that we've sent home, that type of a stigma would have evaporated.
Steve, you spoke and are passionate about some of this stuff, about this accountability, like what should happen. Give us a sense of what would you like to see happen, because I know that you feel that there's still Guantanamo still got prisoners, but there's something that's deeply, we both referred to it, innocence. How do people that are innocent, how should society treat them, and how should they be dealt with?
Yeah, so like accountability, like it'd be amazing that the U.S. government held people accountable for torture and any other war crimes, but I don't see that happening. But I so the people that do commit these things would come forward and be brave enough to take what they did and like try to turn it around and make sure it doesn't happen again.
I mean, like, have you heard about in South Africa when they, I mean, I'm not comparing it, but when they had apartheid and Mandela came into power, they put forward something called the Truth and Reconciliation process, right? That was so those that were involved in crimes had to be true about what they did in order for there to be reconciliation. The agreement was that unless they committed very, very serious crimes, they wouldn't be prosecuted. Like they wouldn't go, but they'd have to, own up. Do you think something like that would ever be possible in America?
I really don't, and I don't see it happening, honestly. But I was wondering, what do you guys feel about accountability? I mean, you guys were collateral damage on the war on terror. You guys were victims. Like, I think your guys' answer is very important. That's something we should strive to reach.
I'll say this much, that I have been pushing for it and advocating for it. My own personal sense, and everybody will answer for themselves. My own personal sense is that there were guys who abused me. There were guys who were involved in, as you know. If they personally were to ask me for forgiveness, I would forgive them if they personally did. But I can't see them doing it. They're hiding, right? So there are guys who didn't abuse me, who were my guardsmen, who've asked for forgiveness. And, they've done that. They've said, they've sought forgiveness, though they didn't abuse me as a personal, but they may have been involved in other, military stuff. And I say to them that I forgive 100 times, not because I have Stockholm syndrome, not because I'm weak, not because I'm a tree hugger. It's because my Lord, my religion, my faith tells me that that is an option open to me that I should follow if I wish to, in order to gain God consciousness, become closer to Allah. Because he loves me. That's his characteristic, the most compassionate, most merciful. But he's also the most just, right? He's also the most just. And, that's the kind of thing that people who've been involved in the abuses, if they think they can hide because they operate within the shadows. So I believe that there's divine justice, that there will be divine justice. But part of the role that I do in Cage is to seek that accountability. I'm not seeking for everybody to go to court and to be prosecuted and be put away. I'm not even seeking that vengeance. But it was just going back to that thing about the truth and reconciliation, because for people to go forward, you've got to admit what you did. And thus far, it's very hard to get people to do that, except for a handful of perhaps whistleblowers.
How could we have a truth about Guantanamo when I don't think we as a nation 20 years later have a truth about 9/11? How are we going to talk about the war on terror, the ramifications of the war of terror, who should be held responsible and accountable for the war on terror, when really we should probably step back and think about the idea of why didn't we go after the individuals who were responsible immediately? Why did we go to two other countries who had who had nearly nothing to do with anything? And accountability would be great. It'd be phenomenal, but Guantanamo isn't going to go anywhere. That's the nature
Steve,
of the United States.
I want to ask you, so because you said you come from a background where people are kind of more, I don't know, conservative and patriotic and so forth. Do you think when we talk kind of, all right, like after 20 years, nobody has been convicted. It's unbelievable, right? After 20 years, and not just of 20 years of, we sat around and did nothing, 20 years of laws and wars on terror, 20 years of FBI investigations, CIA investigation, military intelligence investigations, torture. Man, you can torture stuff out of people and still, like, you haven't been able to prosecute one guy for 9/11. And if you contrast that to World War II, right? 60 million people got killed. You got all of the Nazi war criminals in the Nuremberg trials. Within a year, they're prosecuted. If you present this question, right, to people, say, that that are kind of more, let's say, right-wing or whatever, patriotic, how would they answer?
We have this thing in the US where, like, every 4 years we get a new administration, and it's like we're baptized from, what the last administration did. So, like, Trump comes along and it's like, he's anti-war, and all of a sudden all the Republicans are anti-war, and everything else was Obama and Bush's fault, So they move along, they just forget, the media keeps us forgetting.
It's like a blame game. Do you think?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Just blame the last person. And Mansoor, I mean, you tell me, you're an optimist. Like, if ever I've ever seen a guy, who's an optimist, right? I mean, look, you asked me, what do I think? Islamophobia, that's what we've been campaigning against: Islamophobia, state Islamophobia, laws, targeting media for the past 15 years. It's been such an onslaught. I mean, the war on terror is so bad, or has been so bad, that even the Chinese government has taken it on and called something, they've adopted something called the People's War on Terror against the Muslims of East Turkestan, and use that to target them and say, you know what, we can get away with this because George Bush pretty much said it, and that's revealed in some leaks. But Mansoor, you're still an optimist, mate, which I don't know what, there's something wrong with you, especially where you are and how you are. you're in the midst of this like terrible situation in Serbia, yet you can see all of his thoughts right behind him, all on little post-it notes. The guy's working away like a busy bee, constantly campaigning, fighting for the people in Guantanamo, fighting for people released from Guantanamo, talking about Palestine, talking about the Uyghurs. Are you hopeful and optimistic?
Brother Mu'azzam, honestly, we have to keep hope. Even, it's something we need, something imposed on us to keep the hope alive. Because when you look at the people around us, especially those who get crushed by what's called war and terror and so on, they need to have some kind of light and hope. They need someone to stand. And like Brother Jazakallah Khair, you are one of the people who actually took that duty. But when it comes to accountability from the United States, I'm not that optimistic, to be honest with you, because brother, I always ask.
I maybe not optimistic about the United States, but you just generally are an optimistic person, no?
Yes, but at the same time, as for me, there is a gap between like 15 years. Maybe physically I look like 38, 39, but it is like I'm still like 23, 24. Because that's what it is. That's what all the people are like, I'm still young.
That's the same as me then.
Yeah. So basically, Brother Mu'azzam, what I'm trying to think now, I'm trying to find out what led to the 9/11. Because sometimes I think is it the U.S. Foreign policy, product of U.S. foreign policy, a failure of U.S. foreign policy? Because it is, again, it's an extension of the Cold War, Soviet invasion, the fall, downfall of the Soviet Union, came conflict still in Afghanistan, Taliban to try to take over, then 9/11 happened. But people don't talk about before 9/11. People should talk and discuss the matter seriously. Why? What happened before 9/11? What led to 9/11 to happen?
Okay, before you tell us this, right, I just want to get from Terry, is this something that you're aware of, that has been a discussion about, that you've ever heard, so let's say after Guantanamo, during or whatever, that you heard meaningfully discussed in America? Why did 9/11 happen?
To discuss such a thing as why did 9/11 happen, I won't say is a very that's certainly not a public conversation. That's definitely not a public conversation. Shortly after I had enlisted, I realized that talking about my views towards 9/11 was definitely not a smart idea. I'll say that I was a big fan of Fahrenheit 9/11 that came out when I was in the service, and I don't think entirely too many people that I was in my unit with thought that it was a good film. And honestly, in the last 20 years, I can't think of all that many conversations I've had that revolved around why 9/11 happened. It's not something that people think about. We just sort of accept that it happened and we move on from that point.
All right, I want to get to Mansour in a moment, because Mansour wants to discuss this, and I think it's important. But Steve, I'm going to ask you the same question, only that just think about a criminal trial, right, of say anybody who carries out any kind of crime, murder, whatever it is. You always want to know why. What's the motive, right? That's key in any kind of criminal prosecution. From your experience, has this ever been like a conversation that people have, or is it just simply down to they hate our freedoms?
Yeah, it always comes down to they hate our freedoms, and I think the truth is, the people that commit 9/11, they made statements of exactly why it happened, and people don't want to hear it. They don't want to
engage with it.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Why do you think why do you think they don't want to engage with that? What do you think is the reason? Is it ignorance, or is it just you don't want to accept anything that a person says may have maybe a modicum of reality to it?
Yeah, they just don't want to accept it, Especially,
Americans are very
the words of Osama bin Laden.
individuals. We don't
Sorry,
like
say
to
that.
think of the idea that there's another way of operating outside of how we do things. There's the American way of life, and that's it. So when you talk about an idea about 9/11, particularly with the possibility that the US may have had something to do with it, or that it could have been advantageous, or that we may have simply let it occur, to speak about such an idea with the average American is almost instantaneously going to start a fire of a conversation, because it's just not a capability to the average American to think about life outside of America. I mean, most Americans don't leave their own state in the course of their life. If they do leave their own state, they don't leave their own country. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed to travel dozens of countries, but yeah, it's just, we are a very ethnocentric group of people.
I want to get to both of your travels, actually, because I want to look at how travel has actually formulated your own views. But before I do that, Mansoor, have you disappeared? Or have you gone to the bathroom?
That's a great idea. I think we should all take a bathroom break.
Okay, Mansoor, are you there? All right, he's not there. Okay, so I want him to, because he was. I was only joking about the bathroom break, but he left us here. But there he's back. Mansoor, so you were going to talk about 9/11, reasons behind it, as far as you understand. I read in the 9/11 Commission report a statement by Donald Rumsfeld, which actually said that they were planning on invading Afghanistan already. There was already a plan to invade Afghanistan. Most people don't understand this, and that's in black and white in the 9/11 Commission report. But Mansoor, you explain, why do you think 9/11, where was it coming from?
When you come to, first of all, I would like to say that, media, social media, whether like movies, newspaper, radios, that's what helped the public, shape the public ideas and opinion. Because people, even nowadays, people are lazy to think clearly, and because when you think of the input you put in your mind. But when you talk about 9/11, I have as I was doing some research, I continue my research even at Guantanamo with many people, I talked to them. Even when I wrote another draft, which I called it the conflict between the United States and Al-Qaeda, that draft was confiscated by the FBI. They came 3 times. Just we need to, how you find those story, the names, I said, and the names, how you got them. So Brother Mu'azzam, when you look, Afghanistan is the gate to Central Asia, is as we know. Just 1 year before the 9/11, United States sent a delegation to negotiate with the Taliban to build oil pipe in Afghanistan, as you know. Yeah. And also, they also sent secret delegation to negotiate with Osama bin Laden. They told him, okay, we are going to withdraw from Arab countries to just to station in the overseas. So when you collect all this input, I mean, as you see, when I met with one of the Taliban, they said, one of the Taliban minister, the deputy of Minister of Defense, he said, we knew that Americans were planning to invade Afghanistan. He said it was a matter of time. Also, what happened in Pakistan when the regime changed, when they changed from to military took over, it was the preparation to invade Afghanistan, and that happened before 9/11. So there are many indications that American actually have the intention to go to Afghanistan. If you ask me my opinion, I would like to say it. Al-Qaeda did 9/11, but there is some people in U.S. government knew about it and they let it happen because they wanted something like 9/11 to justify their military intervention, and they needed to be in Afghanistan for, as you know, resources, lithium, uranium, and oil. Also to stop the alliance between the Russian and the Indian and the Chinese, because in the 90s Russian were calling to have some kind of alliance there. So again, the front the front end, it was only 9/11. But actually, what happened in the back, it is deep and more than that.
Okay, so I want to give a shout out to former Major Todd Pearce, who's somebody I've met, spoken to, know and respect. He says, as a one-time senior PsyOps NCO, that's lots of abbreviations there, non-commissioned officer, psychological operations, and then in JAG. Somebody remind me, what does JAG stand for? JAG.
Judge Advocate General.
Judge Advocate General. There you go, officer. He was a Judge Advocate General officer as defense attorney at Guantanamo, I believe, and he was also a major. I believe that the intent of Guantanamo must be seen as a massive influence operation, in quotes, to create a focus of the world on the US as victim, in quotes, just as the military impressed that upon the incoming guards like Terry was when they took them, this is really good, to the World Trade Center first, to fire up the emotions in preparation for guarding prisoners. It was intended from the beginning as a constant reminder of the US being attacked, with no questions permitted, that the answers could reveal the motives of attacking the US as a reciprocal answer to the US attacks in the Mideast, or operating governments there as proxies, regardless of how repressive they were. Okay, so that takes us neatly to something that I wanted to ask you, Terry. When you were taken to Ground Zero, and why, and what happened?
Yeah, when I was taken to Ground Zero. So we had given 2 weeks of time to train, to learn how to fulfill our jobs and duties in Guantanamo. And we conducted this training in a fictitious correctional facility with which we had built with PVC pipe, plastic wiring, and so forth in Fort Dix, New Jersey. It was a very terrible impromptu construction and ideas about how to run in Guantanamo, despite the fact that the manual for Guantanamo itself couldn't leave the island due to operational security. So we really had no idea what we were doing when we arrived. But nonetheless, we were on our way to Guantanamo Bay. And we landed. We got off the plane and we realized there's all these big, tall buildings, you know, it's like really smoggy and dirty and everybody's using profanity. And it turned out that we were in New York City and not Guantanamo. Our commander had arranged for us to go to Ground Zero, and he wanted us to really take in the atmosphere, to absorb the somber, you know, the feelings. There's just no way to really describe it. It's a place kind of like a concentration camp or other areas where significantly horrible events have happened. There's just a very serious feeling that fogs the air. At any rate, we were walking around, we're looking at all the destruction and the rubble and reading the comments that people have written, very heartfelt comments about, you know, the family members that they had perhaps lost, or friends and victims. And you know, it was very heart-wrenching. It felt terrible. And then there was this one comment that I read that it caused me to laugh, which was incredibly inappropriate because, you know, we're at Ground Zero and, you know, I'll laugh there. But this person had written on the wall that this is the greatest tragedy to happen to all of mankind. I just laughed. I couldn't believe how incredibly unintelligent this person could possibly be to think that 9/11 is the greatest tragedy to happen to all of mankind. I know that sounds incredibly, to have a lack of empathy. I wasn't very strong with empathy at that point. But anyway, I read that comment and I laughed, and the rest of my unit kind of looked at me like, you know, he's not like us. He's not thinking the way that we're thinking. Like why did this strike a nerve with him? Why did he laugh? Why did he think this was funny? And that pretty much set my tone with the rest of my unit for the entire time that I was in Guantanamo. They knew that I wasn't like them and that I wasn't going to fit in. And I think that may in some ways have perhaps even further encouraged my desire to learn and to study and to find out as more and as much as I possibly could about every one of the people who was there. I mean, I have an opportunity to see 48 different countries of people in one place, and I could ask them questions all the time about what their life was like, what what was your education, your growing up, your childhood, everything. What's it like where you come from? And there was absolutely no way I was going to pass this up. It was just the type of individual that I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's really fascinating. Thank you for that. Steve, you weren't taken to Ground Zero, but you went to Washington. I feel really thick now, but I think the Pentagon is in Washington, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah.
Is that what you saw, or did you see something else?
No, we went to the Vietnam Memorial is what we did, actually. I don't think it had the same effects as, Ground Zero, for sure. But
And so what was the purpose of taking to the Vietnam Memorial? What was the point of that?
I think it's more to patriotism, just trying to get some emotional response from us. So when we get down there, that we're, down there proud to be American and do our job.
And did it? Okay, so that's a stark difference, right? Because this is around the same time, isn't it? It's not that much different. Your tours of Guantanamo was in a similar period, I think 2002, 2003.
Mine was 2004, 2005.
Oh, 2005. Okay, right. So it was a bit later.
2003, 2004.
Yeah. Okay. So yours was a bit later. Did people feel patriotic going to the Vietnam Memorial, or was there you think that was a sense of that? But did it feel connected in any way to Guantanamo and 9/11 or not?
I don't think so, but it definitely made people, some of the people feel patriotic for sure.
Okay.
I also remember we had this ceremony, and there's this country song like "Proud to Be an American." I don't remember exactly the name that came on, and people with tears going down their face, and it was different for sure.
And did you? I remember, right? I mean, I'm trying my best, and I'm just maybe that I probably fall victim to it now, to avoid the Guantanamo reference directly of the experience there. But I do remember once it was General Jeffrey Miller. Did you guys meet him? You must have met him, right? I think you all met him, or not.
Terry.
No.
Terry
Okay.
met
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we met him. I met him for sure.
Okay. So I remember.
Wait, Terry. You met him, right? Yeah. That 2003. I want to ask you something.
So for those who don't know, General Jeffrey Miller was, I think, the second person that was in charge of Guantanamo, second commander during 2002 to 3. He was, under him, the main kind of enhanced interrogation techniques took place, and then he was redeployed to run detainee operations in Abu Ghraib and Camp Booker. And for those of you who don't know, Camp Booker and Abu Ghraib actually produced ISIS leaders later on. That eventually these guys, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, met with Saddam's leaders who were in prison in Iraq and formulated ISIS in those prison camps. But I remember when Jeffrey Miller came in one day, and he speaks to one of the soldiers guarding me, and he says, "You're on the front line here, son." Excuse my accent. And he says, "You've got to guard these men. These are very dangerous people." But just telling the soldier that he's on the front line, when you're in Guantanamo Bay, there's no war going on there, and there's little old me. I'm 5'3", and these guys are, their arms are bigger than me, and every time they take me out for recreation, they call infantry, and they call something known as the MWD, the military working dog, which I used to laugh at. What does this dog do when it's not working, unemployed or what? But they used to do all of this stuff just to get me out, to this rec area. There's this whole commotion, and that's because the leading military, the generals like Miller have told the ordinary soldier is that you're on the front line, son. Is that, Steve, an experience that you had, that you were told that you are kind of gonna go to be sent to, a kind of a war situation? Yeah,
especially when I first got to Guantanamo, it was actually Command Sergeant Major Mendez would give us these speeches, just about these people would kill you if they could. They're the worst of the worst. You got to watch your back, and you don't fraternize. Don't talk to them about anything personal, and just pure hatred. They wanted to get us worked up, so we'd go in there and be numb, not see human beings. But didn't really work.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously you come across, many people, and your friendship with Muhammad now is world famous. Alhamdulillah. It's actually, deeply inspirational for a lot of people, including me when I saw it. But now looking at the bigger picture, we all saw Taliban's back in power. The Taliban, I don't know how many of you guys met the Taliban leaders or Taliban prisoners, but you must have seen some in Guantanamo. And you must be aware now that some of them are ministers in the new government, right? How do you think that's being interpreted and seen by those who supported the war in Afghanistan, and not just from the military, but from everywhere? How is it being seen? Terry, you tell me, how's it been digested?
Wow, I don't think it has. I don't think the connections have been put together. I don't think the dots, these things aren't seen. Seeing the macro level, seeing the more grand picture, it isn't there. We've kept a very short-sighted view on our history for the last 20 years. We've kept a very focused view on our history for the last 20 years. We've kept our people greatly focused on division with one another. We're constantly fighting with ourselves, and we have so much division and hatred within ourselves that all the world is happening around us. We're oblivious to what's really going on in the world. So yeah, I don't think people have put that connection together yet.
But surely the conversation must be, even if they haven't put the part together, that you guys may know that there are prisoners you used to guard at some point who are now, ministers, leaders in their governments. But they do know that the Taliban's back in power. Like that's just, everybody knows that. How is that? Are people like kind of just putting their heads in the sand and say, we walked out from there, that's it, that's done? Or some people obviously saying, we military leaders are describing this as a defeat, right? It's a defeat. British military leaders have said this. The head of the British Joint Chiefs of Staff has actually not only said it's a defeat, he said, actually, if you think about it, the Taliban are just like country boys who have a code of honor, and they're not so bad. That's the head of somebody who he was in charge of 55,000 NATO troops in Afghanistan at one point. He's just said this. So surely in America there must be some, because here in the UK there's this conversation going on. We should have stayed there, we should have done this, we should have done that. But of course, Britain wasn't going to do anything America's not going to do, right? So just trying to figure out how people are taking that.
It's kind of going back to the blame game, like we talked about earlier. It's like everybody's like, Trump would have done it better, Biden, he's doing it wrong. And that's pretty much all I've been hearing.
I remember Trump, right? There's a famous point. Trump actually picked up the phone. He said, I spoke to the Taliban, and who he actually spoke to was Mullah Baradar, who's like the deputy head of the Taliban, who was held in prison in Pakistan for 10 years as a quote unquote terrorist. And he said, I spoke to him and I said, I understand you're a people that you were fighting for your country. I can understand that. I know you're a brave fighting people. He was almost praising them. So if people are kind of saying that Trump could have done it better, he's the one who started talking to the Guantanamo Taliban.
Brother Mu'azzam, I would like to highlight something here that, it was a trap. It was a trap. I know people will maybe hate when I'm going to say it was like it was Al-Qaeda program. No, I'm not. But when I talk to, talked to Americans, even interrogators, I said, even just recently last year, I talked to one of the American officials. I said, you are exactly where Osama bin Laden wants you to be. He get mad, he face. I said, look, it's not whether or against here. I told him, what's his objectives? What the mission and objective? You give him exactly what he wanted, including his death, first. Secondly, when I was in Guantanamo, I have a Pakistani brother, Saifullah Bracha, the oldest detainee. Obama sent him a delegation. They came to ask him, how can he help to negotiate with the Taliban, because they wanted to get out. It has been like 10 years. When Biden came to an office, most people don't understand he inherits a chaos, really chaos, and he has to solve it. He needs to end the war. This is the only way. I might leave you. I have an interview now. So.
Okay, I mean, that was fascinating. You always got into this guy has interviews in his sleep. Oh, there, he's gone already. Look, he's gone. He's gone. Okay, you know what, guys? So, I don't know if you know this, but do you know Mullah Zaif? Have you heard of Mullah Salam Zaif? He was in Guantanamo. Mm-hmm. He used to be the spokesman for the Taliban. He's written this book. Where's the book gone? Oh, goodness, somewhere around me somewhere. It's actually, here we go. So, he was the Taliban spokesman, and he was also the ambassador to Pakistan. So he's written this book called My Life with the Taliban. Right? You probably might have heard of him. He's not officially a Taliban member at the moment, but he's still very like he's not in the government anymore. What I mean is he's still Taliban. He said to me something, right, that he came to the UK in 2010. He came to the UK. He was allowed. He was released from Guantanamo in 2006. And I think they started some negotiations or something with him. Something was going on. So he came for a visit here, and he called me and a few other guys. We sat down together. He said, he's a very softly spoken guy. He said, you know, one day I was in Kabul in my house. I'd been come back from Guantanamo. And guess who turns up at my door? General Petraeus turns up at my door. Like, he was the head of US forces in Afghanistan, right? Head of the US coalition. And Mr. Petraeus, General Petraeus, had been trying to get in contact with him, and he was just refusing to respond. And so he turned up at his door, like with his whole entourage and his, you know. And he said, "Look, Mullah Zaif, I need to speak to you." And he said, "What about?" He said, "I need a way to talk to the Taliban, and we need a way to have negotiations with them." And Mullah Zaif's response was just like amazing. He said it in a very soft, he speaks a kind of a very, very, very simple English. You see, if you wanted to talk to the Taliban, it's really easy. All you have to do is you see those rockets and missiles that you fire. You see where they go and where they land. There, at the end of it, you'll find the Taliban ready to talk or ready to fight. It's your choice. And I found that fascinating, because what he was saying there is that Taliban's ready to talk, but they're also ready to fight. It's your choice. That's essentially, it's your choice. Thinking about that and thinking about what Donald Trump said, he even said he's recorded to have said that Taliban are great fighters. As to Soviets, they'll tell you the Taliban are great fighters. Do you think there'll ever be a time when America as a nation will turn around and say, just like they talk now about Native Americans, Geronimo, Apaches, incorporating?
Absolutely not.
You don't think that's
absolutely not? No,
never.
Absolutely not. There is entirely too much Orientalism that's been established in this country over the last 50 years no, I mean, we'd have to undo nearly 3 generations of people who've been programmed to not like Arabs. It's just absolutely not. No.
Even though the Taliban are not Arabs?
There's no difference in the American mind. It's all the same. It's all Middle East. We hate it all. Let's blow it all up. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. It wouldn't. I would love it. I mean, I wish that could be a future that would be something I would see, but no, I don't see that as being a possibility.
Steve, in your experiences of people that you're talking to, surely must be somebody who because look, they said they're like country boys, good old country boys with a code of honor. Doesn't that resonate somewhere?
Yeah, but no, I mean, it always spun around how we were humane, like we didn't get, the empire didn't get beaten back by the people of Afghanistan, but it was just, we left because
politics.
There's some spin on it. They're going to be like, we'd have to like be careful because, the enemy looked like, the rest of the population, so it's like, it was an unwinnable war, and like, it's just going to have some spin.
Hopefully we can get another good TV show out of it, like we did with the Korean War. We got MASH.
MASH.
Hopefully Alan Alda, if he's still alive, will come out back and do some more writing, and we can get another great TV show.
That is really that's cynical. You know, I remember meeting an American soldier there. His name, I still remember his name, man. I don't know. Sergeant Fauché, SOG, Sergeant Fauché. And I found him fascinating. I saw him most fascinating. I've written about him in my book, and he said that he served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam as a volunteer, not as a conscript. And you know, I told you before, I was interested in the Vietnam War, but listening to somebody and his own experiences was amazing. He said that they fought against the North Vietnamese army and so forth. And he said we would be carrying out some of that. We're being more brutal than our enemy in some places. He was talking about the My Lai massacre and all that. And he said, obviously, the population was going to turn against us. And he was this guy. He was like one of those good old boys. He's a Republican. He's talking all about all these guns that he owns and speaks with a southern drawl. And he's not a tree hugger or whatever you want to call it. But he said, you treat people bad, they will turn against you. That's what his view was. And he said, when he was there to me, that's what we're doing to you guys. He said that. And I found that really fascinating because he was he's from the Bush support base. Mm. So I'm just thinking whether there's people who think about that, whatever those kind of Southern gentlemanly values or whatever, that somehow they might in some way connect to people abroad, Taliban or others, or are they just like too far gone?
I think they're too far gone for sure. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So guys, we're going to come to an end shortly, but I just want both of you to tell me this, okay? Both of you had a journey to Islam, right, in different ways. Our viewers and me included will never get enough of that. We'll never get enough of hearing how, or a different take on how, or a different narration of how. So you tell me first, Terry, your journey to Islam, how and why?
There's really no quick version of that. The briefest synopsis would be that I went to Guantanamo with an open mind, and I was receptive to the information that I was given. I took that in comparison and contrast with other information that I had available and made informed decisions. And I haven't looked back. I haven't had any regrets as a result of such. If we want to add some emotion, if you want to add some seasoning to that, I remember once there was this little English guy that was getting ready to be taken to interrogation. We'd knocked on his cell and said, "Come on, you, it's time to go. It's time for interrogation." And, we're looking at him, pretty sure that he was probably going to get beat up or something bad was going to happen to him. And he very quietly closed his Quran. And he put it down. He turned around, he looked at us, and he said, "Okay, bring it on." And that little quiet Englishman was Moazzam Beg. He said, "Okay, bring it on." And I thought to myself that if this little guy, a scrawny little dude, he's getting underfed, he's stuck in a cage, he never knows if he's going to go home or see his family ever again. He never knows he doesn't know what's happening to them. This is what he's living in. This is his reality. It's this cage. This is where he's going to live. This is where he's going to die. This is the abuse and the life he's going to live. If he can look at me and say, "Bring it on." I mean, I'm the US military. I got all the weapons and this, that, and the other. I got my brothers around me and all these guns. And this teeny little guy can say, "Bring it on." There must have been something more to Islam that he knew about than I had ever been told. So that definitely continued and further motivated my search to find faith.
I've met you a few times, right? We met a couple of times. And I don't think we've ever discussed that. And I think it's the first time you've ever told me that. So that's a wow moment. It's actually a wow moment. It's a subhanallah moment.
Steve?
Yeah, thanks. Steve, you tell me.
Yes. So first time I sparked interest was I was actually deployed to Egypt prior to Guantanamo Bay. And hearing the call to prayer in Cairo was like, it was amazing. It was like just a beautiful heavenly sound. And like, but I kind of buried that interest because I'm American and that's what we're supposed to do. So then
was that before 9/11?
that was like 2002,
So,
late 2002. Yeah. So then I went to Guantanamo Bay, and I just got lucky enough to be, put into the special missions, like special projects with Mamadou, guarding him. So like I was able to, spend a lot of one-on-one time, like just observing the way he practices Islam and the way he prays, and I was able to ask him questions, so it was like, he slowly broke that barrier down, like got rid of my biases, things that I believed before. And so when I got back home after the deployment, it just kept my research up, and finally decided to take Shahada, and amazing decision.
Well, you see, one of the things that really moves us as human beings, as Muslims in particular, is this. We've seen several, of the former Guantanamo soldiers become Muslims, take the Shahada, even including some females. And I can tell you, right, that this part of the story is unexpected. It's just the unexpected part of the story. The kind of friendships that built up in Guantanamo, but also the fact that people made a conscious choice to take that journey of spirituality. I remember, right, there's something that, do you remember David Hicks? You all remember David Hicks, right? The Australian guy, right?
Actually, I got to spend 48 hours straight with him when he was in detainee hospital. I remember him really well. Okay.
So he said something once, and I remember, and it stuck with me. It's really stuck with me. Do you remember at sunset, you have you play the national anthem, right? Every sunset. And as Muslims, at every sunset, we play our own kind of anthem to Allah, right? And it's the adhan, it's the call to prayer. David Hicks, he was in one of his philosophical moments, which he didn't have many of, right? In one of his philosophical moments, at the sunset point, right? Yeah, so you've got the soldiers, they have to stand facing the flag, don't they? And do the salute in the direction of the flag, right? At sunset. And simultaneously, there's the call to prayer. And the brothers, the prisoners are doing Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And they're facing, so you guys are facing, or the soldiers are facing in one direction, the prisoners are facing in another direction, doing the call to prayer. And he says, look, two groups of people here, one facing the object of their devotion, the salute, the other facing the object of their devotion, their salute, Allahu Akbar. So I thought that was, wow, that was just a David Hicks thing, which was fascinating. But imagine if you're somebody who is a soldier and has taken a Shahada there. What would you be doing then? You don't have to answer that. But the point was that it's just this thing that who could have thought that Islam would have entered your hearts? And that's the thing I want to say. I'm going to really, really finish here now. Is that I tweeted out that how people, I see you guys, I see you as my brothers in faith, and that we were mirrors of one another in that place. There's a saying of the prophets, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-mu'minu mira'a akhi, that a believer is the mirror of his brother. And many of you guys became our mirrors there because you saw us in the best and the worst of times, and we saw you also in some of your best and worst times. So, I mean, I'm going to give you all like anything you want to say, the last few moments, and inshallah, we're going to end then, hopefully. If there's any questions anybody wants to put forward, please do as your last chance. I'm just going to, before I give you the last word, guys, Todd Pearce, he says one more thing about what we were talking earlier on. He says that the Vietnam War stands for a stab in the back to the US military and the right wing. The myth that the generals and the admirals created after war was that we could have won, except for the so-called liberal media. Yeah, this is exactly what Sergeant Fauché told me. He said, son, we never lost the war. it was the media. It was, in fact, he called them the punk-ass kids. He said it was the punk-ass kids. I didn't know what punk-ass meant, actually, but it was an interesting word. They're the ones with their anti-war demonstrations, etc., etc. They lost us the war. So he still held true to that kind of, we could have won the war. But anyway, guys, Steve, last word.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for having me on, and it was a great experience. And yeah,
you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Terry, last word, bro.
For a good time, watch The Office.
What does that
For
mean?
sure.
Watch The Office.
Yeah, watch The Office. Jim and Pam, Dwight, Michael Scott, watch The Office.
Okay. I'm going to finally finish, brothers and sisters, with, and first of all, thank you to all of you for tuning in. I know is it Friday or Saturday? I can't even remember what day it is. It's Saturday. It's a Saturday night here for us here in the UK. There's still plenty of daylight where you guys are in the US. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts daylight on all of us and puts the light of daylight onto all of those lives that have been affected negatively by this so-called war on terrorism, and that justice prevails no matter where, no matter when. Finally, I'd like to say that, again, if you're able to tune into and look at the website, the International Witness Campaign, you'll see Cage's work that we've been doing and we'll be doing for the next 5 months up until the anniversary of January, the 20th anniversary since the first prisoners were brought into Guantanamo Bay. And with that, I'm going to end. Thank you all. Thank my guests. Thank Steve. Thank Mansoor. Thank Terry. And thank myself and all of you. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.